Here's the interview that Ben Carson did on CNN. It's rather long, and I got some issues with it. But let's listen to the interview.
Dr. Ben Carson. All right, let's talk. What's happening there?
Hey, Frederica, we're here with Dr. Ben Carson, right in front of his childhood home, actually. Dr. Carson, this is where you grew up, and you decided to bring Donald Trump here. He's just about to leave. What was it like bringing him here?
Well, this was our dream home, and we had to leave here for several years. It was always our dream to get back here, and I just wanted him to see a little bit about what it was like, what the neighborhood was like, and we also went through some of the more blighted areas of Detroit, which when I was growing up was a very prosperous city. It was once the most prosperous city in America, and has unfortunately undergone some pretty awful things. And I think maybe there are things that we can learn as a society, because in order for our country to be great again, every aspect has to be great, including our inner cities.
And we just saw Mr. Trump here. I asked him how did it go, and he said great, and he said he learned a lot of things. What do you think he took away from today?
My luggage. Hold on.
Okay. Looks like Dr. Carson is going to try and find his luggage, and he'll be right back with us. But this is where we are right here. We're right in front of the home of Dr. Ben Carson, and this is where he grew up, actually. And he just brought Mr. Trump here. Trump came here for just a few minutes. He walked over here, spoke with this woman down here in the driveway, who is actually the owner now of Mr. Carson's home. And he's actually back with us again. So we're going to continue.
Oh, good. That means luggage found.
Is it all okay? You're taking care of it. So tell us, what do you think Mr. Trump learned from coming here and also speaking at the church service? Did he speak with people? What were the private interactions like?
He had an opportunity to speak with several people, and more importantly, he had an opportunity to see, some of the parts of the city that are not prospering, and a chance to talk to some of those people, as well as at the church. And I think it just fortifies, every time I've talked to him about Detroit and about the problems in the inner city, he gets very, very animated. He's very anxious to do something about it.
What is his plan exactly to address crime in inner cities? Because I've heard him on the stump, and he talks about jobs back, bringing jobs back, and all that stuff, but it doesn't seem like there's enough concrete specifics.
Well, there's not a one specific thing. It's a host of things. For instance, using a lot of the trillions of dollars that are overseas, repatriating that money, incentivizing it to come back, and then
Okay, Ben, and just how do you incentivize that money to come back? Because I've heard nobody say that money comes back for free. And even if it did, the countries where it's currently sitting in, they would just drop down the portion that is taxable, or the tax rates on that money, to zero, just to keep it. So we need to hear a concrete plan on how you're actually going to get that money back.
Using a portion of it, because the stipulation would be, we're not going to tax you, but 10% of it has to be used enterprise zones to create jobs for people who are unemployed, underemployed, on welfare. And
okay, now that's the very first time that I've heard anybody from the Trump campaign actually indicate exactly how they're going to get the money back. Ben Carson just said that money would come back and it would not be taxed. And I had never heard that before. Interesting.
Really, what that does is it's twofold. First of all, it'd be the biggest stimulus package since FDR's New Deal. Number two, it gets businesses and corporations once again interested in reaching out to the communities and helping people in the communities, which is what they used to do before the government took over it. And the government has plenty on its hands without doing things that we, the people, should be doing for each other.
Right, so it seems like what Donald Trump has is an economic plan, right, for the country. But is there something specific that he needs to do to address the problems that are very different in the inner cities of America that's more than just stimulating economic growth in the country?
Well, a large part of the problem is economics. It's like in a marriage. What are the two things that make marriages go bad? economics and sex. Well, we'll take the sex out of it. But economics, it's the same kind of thing, for a society. When things become tense economically, it creates a lot of other problems that don't need to be there. And, you look at a city like Detroit, which was once a hub of innovation and entrepreneurial risk-taking and capital investment, and you look at what's happened to it because of the enormous number of regulations that just stifle that creativity. And that's not helpful to us as a nation. We Americans have always been creative people, the can-do attitude. We don't want to trade that for the what can you do for me attitude, because that always runs out. All the societies that have gone that way end up looking the same way, with a small group of elites at the top who control everything, a rapidly diminishing middle class, and a vastly expended dependent class. We don't need that.
When Donald Trump talks about poverty in the inner cities and he talks about crime in the inner cities, he describes a world in which you say, you walk out your door and you can get shot. And his solution to that is more police. That's what he said, is bringing more police into the communities. Is that enough?
That's one of the things that you've heard. But the thing that you haven't maybe concentrated on is him talking about providing the right kind of education and educational choices for people, because that changes the trajectory in their lives. You haven't yet heard him talking about what kinds of things we need to do in order to strengthen the family. Because, see, a lot of these young men in inner city.
Yeah, maybe we haven't heard him because he hasn't said them.
Like this, they grew up in single-parent homes with no father figure. That creates problems because people frequently don't learn how to react appropriately to authority, and the first authority figure that they meet is a policeman or someone who's badder than they are. In either case, it doesn't work out well. And frequently, they really never even had a chance. We need to have policies that bring families together. And also,
we'd love to hear those policies if you guys would ever enunciate them.
When you look at the recidivism rate in our prisons, we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the prison inmates. That means there's a problem.
Yeah, there's a problem with the criminal justice system.
He knows that, and we'll be talking more about that. But the people, they go into those prisons with no education and no skills, and they come out with no education and no skills.
Why is that? It's because the Republicans pulled Pell Grants away from prison inmates so that they could no longer learn, try to get high school diplomas and college degrees while they were incarcerated, so that they would have some type of skill set that they could utilize when they got out of prison. Thank your Republican buddies for that.
What are they going to do? Go right back to what they were doing before. We have an opportunity to alter that pathway. Means we also need to get involved in helping people when they finish their prison sentence to be able to obtain work and change the direction of their lives.
Do you think when Donald Trump says, what the hell do you have to lose? We spoke today with a number of community leaders who are outside the event this morning protesting, and one of the things that they said is, listen, we have a lot to lose actually by, our voting rights, our civil rights, the number of gains that African Americans have made over the decades. When Trump says, what do you have to lose, is that the wrong language to use?
But why would anybody think their voting rights are going away?
Only because of the Section 5 being removed from the Voting Rights Act, and let me see if I can call them out. Texas, Florida, North Carolina, Kansas, Wisconsin, South Dakota, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Who am I missing? There's about 7 or 8 more that, before the order was even dry, ran in and issued all of these bullshit voter restriction laws. So this is what we have to lose. A Supreme Court that has a 9th judge placed on it that is conservative will obviously look much more favorably upon North Carolina, who is the bell cow as far as voter discrimination laws is concerned. And we already know that there was a 4-4 split as far as reviewing North Carolina's request to reinstate their voting right laws, which had been invalidated by the lower circuit court of appeals. So yeah, voting rights, number one. Number two, Citizens United needs to be overturned to get all the money out of politics, or a lot of it, so that the government is indeed set up for we the people. Those are just two examples of what do we have to lose.
What is that the right language to use, I guess, to say, what do you have to lose? What the hell do you have to lose?
I can't let that question go by without saying this. Who was it that fought voting rights and the civil rights movement? Democrats.
It was the Dixiecrats. Okay, so yes, you are right. They were the Southern Democrats who are today's Republicans. The Dixiecrats, after the Voting Rights Acts and all the various civil rights acts were passed, the Dixiecrats, who were Southern Democrats, were taken out of the Democratic Party by Strom Thurmond and brought into the Republican Party. So there's a little information for you. Everybody likes to throw that out there, that it was the Democrats that fought it. And yeah, technically you're right. It was the Southern Democrats that fought it. But they are today's Republicans.
Who was it that was a part of the Ku Klux Klan? Democrats.
Okay, again, it was Democrats, okay, which later became Republicans, Dixiecrats.
Who was the party that was established as the abolitionist party? The Republicans. So then the Democrats said, well, what happened is, in the 60s it all changed and the Democrats became the Republicans. You've probably heard that myth yourself.
It's not a myth. See, that's what they want everybody to believe, that it was a myth. It's not a myth.
It's total garbage. 1% of people.
But when we're talking about in 2016, Donald Trump saying to African Americans, "What do you have to lose by voting for me?" How does that language?
Well, what you have to do is listen to what he's actually saying. He's saying that 50 years of these kinds of progressive policies have not led to a good place. So, why would you continue to go down that pathway and expect something different to happen? And, there are a lot of people who want to concentrate on, well, he said this and he said this, without actually asking themselves, what is he saying? What is the actual message? And it's part of the problem that we have in America today. We don't...
Wait a minute. Donald Trump is supposed to be the straight shooter, the straight talker. Why do we have to have an interpreter to try to figure out what his message is? His message is in the words that he uses.
Listen to what a person is saying. We listen to how they said it. Case in point, go back and do some homework and look at Bill Clinton's State of the Union address in 1995. And you will find a section where he says, illegal aliens are creating big problems in our country, and they're getting welfare benefits and they're getting employed. We need to stop them from doing that. We need to deport people. We need to get border agents. Now, if Donald Trump says the same thing, they say he's a hate monger. What does that say to you about our society?
Wrong. If Donald Trump said the same exact thing that Bill Clinton said, there wouldn't really be that much of an issue. What Donald Trump did was he called an entire race of people in a country basically a bunch of rapists and murderers. That's what set everything off. And then he went and attacked the Muslims and wanted a Muslim ban. Trump has said in plain English so many racist and hateful things that you have to take him at his word. And you trying to be an interpreter just is not going to cut it.
It says when it's the person who says it rather than what's being said, we're not using our heads.
But there is, of course, and I'm sure you would acknowledge this, a lot of hurt, it seems, in the African American community towards the words that Donald Trump has said. You know, he's dismissed Black Lives Matter. When a Black Lives Matter protester was roughed up, he said maybe he should have been roughed up. This was back in the fall. And he's made a number of comments, you know, from the recent description of African American lives, you know, painting it as all poverty, no jobs, all crime.
Well,
you know,
is
that language helpful? Is there a way that he can...
Well, if you ask him about those comments, though, and allow him to explain it, you'll see...
Wait a minute, why does he have to explain it? You know, if he had said some people have issues, some communities have crime, he issued a blanket statement. So he chose the words that he used. He's got to live with them.
He says very readily, I have a lot of African American friends who are very wealthy, who do very well, and I know that the majority of black people don't live that way. But the problem is we have a very large percentage of people in our inner cities who are not experiencing any of the benefits of our society, and that's a problem for all of us. That's the real message. That's a message that really should resonate with anybody who actually cares about what's going on, as opposed to who has a political agenda.
So,
Ben, that was your message, not his.
how many African American votes is he going to win? What percentage of the African American vote do you think that he can win in this election?
I don't know, but I do know that in the NBC Survey Monkey poll a couple of weeks ago, he was polling at 1%. A week later, he was polling at 8%. It'll be interesting to see, because in what the African American community, the reason that they've stuck with the Democrats is because nobody else has reached out to them, and they feel they don't have any other option. I think this is a very good thing that he is actually making a concerted effort to reach out. And it's not a pandering effort, it's an effort to strengthen the entire fabric of the country, because he knows that America cannot be great if we have big pockets of dysfunction.
So that's actually the one more thing that I wanted to ask you about is Donald Trump over the past nearly 3 weeks has in every single rally speech talked about African Americans directly, made that direct appeal, which is very rare to see from a Republican nominee. But he's done so, of course, before predominantly white audiences. And we saw him yesterday meet with some African Americans, today go into a black church. How important do you think that was, and were you part of encouraging him to do that?
Well, it's important to speak before all audiences, because the problems that we are having, quite frankly, in our inner cities affect all of us. We're all in the same boat, and if part of the boat goes down, the rest of it's going down too. So it affects everybody. But I think it was very important for him to start talking about it before he came to the black community, because you want to sow the seeds of peace and cooperation before you go there, and it makes it less likely that the agitators can create a big ruckus.
So you think the fact that he made that outreach, even if it was before predominantly white audiences, helped set him up for more receptive
Absolutely.
things? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Carson. We really appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, that's Ben Carson swatting flies in Detroit. But a lot of the stuff that he said was BS. Now, some of it absolutely was valid, but a lot of the stuff that he said was bullshit. As far as Donald Trump and his history, you know, you judge a tree by its fruit, and Donald Trump hasn't planted a lot of trees in the black community, and the only fruit that we could see pretty much from his tree is housing discrimination, attacks on the black community, no partnerships with the black community, i.e. Business contractors and buildings, etc. So there you have it.